Welcome to the Life's Best Medicine podcast, where we are finding hope and healing one episode at a time. No appointment needed, no rubber gloves, and no coping. Just a healthy dose of life lessons to help equip you for this wild journey we call life. Hey everyone, this is a friendly reminder that we are here for entertainment purposes only. We may not even be that entertaining at times, but this is not medical advice. Talk to your doctor, check with your healthcare professionals before making any lifestyle changes or medicine changes. What we're talking about is our clinical experience and what we've seen. And so if you really want our advice, you can consult us. You can actually consult me as a doctor, or you can consult my guest and get all your questions answered. But we can't give free medical advice because we can't pay our bills with that, but we can help to educate you a bit and allow you to think a little bit, and always reach out to your medical professional before making any lifestyle changes. Thank you. Hey everyone, we made it to July. Boy, this year's flying by, and the holidays are going to sneak up on us pretty soon. So we're going to enjoy the heat while we can in the summer here. So hopefully you're having a great summer, and that you've been preparing and getting ready for summer so that you can go out there in your summer clothes and feel good about yourself. So anyways, I want to thank my sponsors, Health Code. They're doing some great work. Dr. Bickman, hopefully people can go back and listen to Joel Bickman. I got to interview him at length about how they started the company and what their goals are, but they're doing some great work. And, I would definitely recommend going to their website. They have a ton of recipes and information and reports that Dr. Bickman has written. That there's some great education there. So I'm so happy that they're sponsoring us. Plus they have some great treats there, recipes, and shakes, whatever you need to get you through the summer to keep you cool. Also, Keto Mojo, they came out with a new device in the last year or two that measures the GKI, glucose ketone index. And I thought that was just kind of hype, but there's a lot of data coming back about how helpful that is in fighting cancer and going through chemotherapy. Dr. Seyfried has been talking about it. So I've been paying a lot more attention. So if you're worried about your health, check that Keto Mojo, keto-mojo.com. Really good information, and they have an app that you can track all your ketones and sugar levels to make sure you're on track. And so I'm very appreciative of them sponsoring this podcast. So go out and buy their stuff. Thank you. Hello and welcome back to the Life's Best Medicine podcast. I'm excited. I have another doc here of family medicine. That's crazy stuff. Taking care of kids and adults. I'm sticking with adults, man. Except in Guatemala, I do have some children patients mostly there. But Dr. Marcus Wheeler, family medicine in Texas, and you're a California guy too. Welcome.
Thank you so much. Thank you. God bless you, Brian. Thank you so much for having me. It's a joy to come on your podcast and talk about our experiences and how we got into medicine and the type of things that we're doing. So thank you so much again for this invitation.
Yeah, no, you're a positive light. I've seen you on Twitter. You stand up for your faith. You're trying to help patients. You're doing things a little bit outside the system, trying to reach people who are in the most in need. So tell me your journey of like what possessed you to become a doctor. Did it run in your family lines, or did it just kind of happen? So tell me a little bit about you growing up and what your heart was and what brought you into medicine.
Yes, thank you so much for that. So I was telling you a little bit before we came on. I'm a native of Houston, Texas, so born and raised. I did, in fact, come from a line of doctors, starting with my grandfather, my dad, surgeon, pathologist, and then I kind of did something else in family medicine. So it was, great to just, follow the same family tradition. But, I told my dad, who's a pathologist, I just wanted to see a little bit more patient contact as he would take me to work and we would look behind the microscope. So I kind of developed a love for medicine at an early age, and just inspired by what my grandfather was doing. And I have several uncles that are doctors too. So I think that's really what put the seed in me to pursue medicine. And, Brian, as I got older, I had, again, that passion just to help people, just to help patients. And, to alleviate any suffering I could. And, as a Christian, I also, was always prayerful. I said, God, I want to be able to tangibly, bless someone and share your love with them through the modality of medicine. And I tell you, that really just, grew and grew at that passion. And, finally in college, I did pre-med and of course the medical school route. My medical school route took me a little bit different. I grew up in Houston, so I went to Houston Baptist University, and for medical school, I ended up going down to Costa Rica. So I was in Latin America and Central America, beautiful place, to visit and to, go on vacation, but also it was wonderful to go down there to medical school. And, that was sort of the early mid 2000s, and, had a great experience. All the while, just remembering my passion to, also incorporate medicine into medical missions, which of course you have also done in Guatemala recently. And, I had visited Guatemala prior to going to medical school on a medical mission trip when I was still in college. So I got to interpret for some doctors, internists, as well as family medicine. And that really just kind of solidified the route that I wanted to go, and just, share, the love of God, but also doing it tangibly through medicine. So that just gives you kind of a background how I came to be a doctor, and kind of what what shaped me and my interest in things like medical missions, and like you said, seeing the whole family, both adults and kids. So yes, I probably haven't done as much childcare, when in my telehealth practice, but certainly traditionally trained in family medicine. Back in Houston, Texas, is where I did my residency, just outside of Houston. And I finished up there in 2012. And that's kind of where, Brian, I'm glad we're talking about just the journey, because as you know, residency was very stressful, long hours, a lot of call, and I was pretty burnt out coming out of residency. But I was hopeful that my transition into, practice would be a little bit, easier, and certainly it was from the standpoint of the hours. But one thing that I noticed early on, after I came out of residency and took my first job at at a hospital system and clinic, is I realized, the model that we were following for chronic care and chronic disease management was just so unsatisfying. And I know, you probably have a similar story, but, seeing our diabetic patients and our patients with hypertension, insulin resistance, I realized that I was really just putting a Band-Aid on by constantly, checking labs and refilling medications. And, Brian, I burnt out pretty quick in that first year out of residency as a primary care doctor. And I realized that I obviously was still passionate about helping people and my patients, but at that point, I pivoted and transitioned to more acute care, urgent care type of a modality where obviously you see more of a quick return, and if someone has an infection, you prescribe an antibiotic. But I really kind of got out and transitioned more to acute care, and it really wasn't until 2018 that I began to come across the ketogenic lifestyle, intermittent fasting, like you're obviously doing and a proponent of. Started watching Jason Fung and other doctors that were introducing me to the ketogenic lifestyle and intermittent fasting. And that's really where I got passionate about kind of where I'm currently at in 2023, helping patients make that transition and that journey to more of a lifestyle, dietary changes, as well as I would say the other passion in my practice currently is the vaccine injured and those who have syndromes like long COVID that are suffering, and some very, as you know, with very debilitating illness and syndromes that, we're still trying to understand exactly what our patients are dealing with, but just acknowledging them and helping them through that in whatever way we can, through, again, dietary lifestyle changes, as well as vitamin supplements, and of course, prayer, a big proponent of just, praying with my patients as they allow that space to connect. So that's kind of a real quick summary. I apologize going through that so quick to kind of, show you kind of my progression over the years and how I got to what I'm doing today. But yeah, I can elaborate, or we can, drill down on any of those areas. But that's kind of my overall journey. Just a real quick way that I explained it there.
Yeah, I think we all see that. We went into medicine to help people, and we realized we're not helping people. What are we doing? And we get, if it, you have to be more efficient, you have to see more patients, you have to be quicker. And I spent, so much time trying to figure out the problem, saying, okay, the problem is I have over 2,000 patients in my old practice. So how do I take care of 2,000 patients? I'm one doctor. If I do one physical a year on each of those patients, that's like, you start doing the math, you go, okay, this is impossible. I can't even just do physicals on all my patients when you have, and the average doctor is carrying, over 2,000 to 3,000, some 5,000 patients I've heard. And like, wow, one person taking care of that many, it's just not good medical care. And then when we jump out of the system, they go, well, you're shorting because you're not seeing as many patients. Well, of course not. I can't provide good care. I could either see a lot of patients or I could provide excellent care. Which one would you prefer? Right.
Exactly. That's exactly right. And yeah, that model was just so dissatisfying for me. Because I wanted to take more time with my patients, but obviously when you're in a managed care system or an institution, there's you have to get patients through. You've got a stack of patients coming, and while we all have to set appointments and sometimes closer follow-up with patients that might be more complicated in their situations, it was just I always felt like I couldn't quite sufficiently address the patient's issues. And certainly before I knew about these paradigm shifts that we're talking about with low carb diet and intermittent fasting and all these possibilities that at the time, of course, I wasn't even aware of. So I think I was frustrated, but I really didn't know what to do about it. And I think, Brian, that's why I pivoted really into acute care, because I didn't know there was any other way other than just the big pharma model and, the protocols that we were, taught and so forth. And so I thought, gosh, there's no other way that I know of to help patients. I need to do something else right now. And then thank God, as the Lord releases good knowledge, and like I said, all these doctors, including yourself, that really have pioneered this space, it's such a breath of fresh air to see how it is changing lives, how patients are responding well, how people's eyes are brightening because they're realizing, what, I don't have to live with this the rest of my life. These afflictions and these chronic diseases, many can be reversed. And I mean, it's just, there's nothing as exciting in medicine, I think, than to see patients really get that breakthrough in their health, and then we can actually start de-prescribing rather than prescribing. So that's a very satisfying thing that I'm experiencing now. And I thank God for, like you said, the blessing of being a doctor and being able to share this information with our patients, and just see lives transformed. So that's really the joy and what it's all about.
Yeah, and that's where all this comes together. It's like we want to provide hope, we want to provide healing, right? That's, as Christians, that's what we believe. And you go, man, I really wish I could help this person. And sometimes, you start realizing, and I really do feel for the young docs, because they see crazy stuff and they can't really say anything, because they say, look, I'm $300,000 in debt. I can't really afford to lose my job, so I'm just going to be quiet and not say anything. And that's what we've seen in medicine a lot. I was thinking about it this morning. I was thinking, the Navy SEALs, like if someone's going to take the hill, like they see the enemy and they're going to take the hill, all the other SEALs will lay down ground fire for them so that they can go up and achieve the mission. It seems like doctors, they say, go take the hill. We'll just sit here and we'll watch you, but we're not going to say anything because, we'll be a target if we shoot. Right. So it's one of those things where you start realizing that this self-preservation. I think as doctors, we're rule followers. We're supposed to, we do what's the told. They tell us what to do and we don't question it. And then when you start questioning it, then it's just like a cult in the religious system would be, if I don't question anything and they say, wait, the Bible doesn't say what you're telling me it says, then maybe let's talk about this. And when we can't question, then that's when you get into trouble, because crazy stuff starts happening and no one questions it anymore.
Right. Exactly. And this time period, obviously, I call it like the COVID era, it's been crazy. And definitely as doctors, we've, felt that pressure. But at the same time, thank God that God put us here for such a time as this. I often think about that scripture from Esther 4:14, where Mordecai is, telling Esther, that she really needs to advocate for her people, the Jewish people. And of course, he let her know in no uncertain terms. He said, "Listen, Esther, if you don't do this, you will die in your father's house." But what's more, what if God brought you to the palace for such a time as this? And I really think in my life, and I know in many others like yourself, I think that conviction that the Holy Spirit put on our heart, just to stand up in this time, like you're saying, not to shrink back, but to push forward and to find that courage and that strength that comes from God, and not shy away from doing what's right, even though it could cost us everything. Because that's what I realized, and I'm glad you brought this up, because that was a huge moment for me, I think, in 2021, when I was at the time working for a company that, limited what I could say. And it was a telemedicine company, but I was not allowed to say anything negative against the vaccine, nor was I allowed to prescribe any off-label medications that I clearly saw was helping patients. And at that moment, I told the Lord, I prayed and I said, I can't keep doing this. I mean, this is not serving anyone. And that's when I decided to resign from that job. And then I had to look at other avenues, other platforms that would in fact allow me to be who God called me to be. And that is a doctor that stands up for what is right for my patients. And just as you know, the oath that we took to first do no harm. So, and I'm blessed to have a very strong Christian wife, and she had my back. She said, absolutely, there's no debate here. This is what we have to do. And, Brian, I told her, I said, listen, my wife, Kelly, I said, Kelly, I said, listen, even if I'm persecuted and ultimately lose my license for doing what's right, I want to stand before God and hear, well done, good and faithful servant. I don't want any other, outcome, and I fear the Lord more than I fear man, is basically what it comes down to. And, but, God is so good. He's always got our back, even when the odds are stacked against us, even when there's persecution. I have found as a Christian, when you put your life in God's hands, and you can trust everything, your family, your life, your business, your income, God's got you. Even if he did change things up, and I knew that even if ultimately I wasn't able to work as a doctor, and hopefully I'll work as a doctor as long as I can, as long as the good Lord sees fit for me to do that. But I knew ultimately that God would always provide. So I just needed to trust him and not allow fear to discourage me from doing what was right. And so thank God I found other doctors like you, and many of our brothers and sisters out there that are that have similar convictions, that have not allowed censorship and persecution to stop them from doing what's right. So I just want to commend you and say thank you for what you're doing. You inspire me, and I'm so glad the Lord brought us together.
Yeah, Twitter brought us together, believe it or not, right?
Yes,
But it's amazing. It is amazing. Like, I'm thinking that with my wife too, behind me. She
Yes.
has been behind me the whole way. And she said, look, I said, if I step out, financial issues, blah, 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 blah. She goes, step out. You're not happy. You're not happy doing what you're doing anymore. You're working 18-hour days. You're not,
Right.
you're all weekend you're working, you're up all night, you're doing all this stuff. You're trying to be a good dad, trying to be a good husband, all these things. And it's too much on you. Like, step out. So what? We can grow our own food, whatever we got to do. But people don't realize, when you have a lot of med school loans, and that was one of the things that kind of freed me, is getting those med school loan debts down a little bit. It takes time. I went to USC, so it doesn't happen in a day. And you go, okay, slowly, keep going. But people cannot appreciate the pressure that doctors are under. We're taking a lot of heat right now as a profession, justifiably so, because so many doctors were just afraid to say something. They saw it happening. And then, it's like, I think back at the atrocities of the world, where people knew, but they just didn't say anything. And that's evil in itself, because we have a responsibility, especially as docs. And I had to come to that conclusion with my wife. We had the same discussion. I said, look, if I can't practice in a way to best serve my patients based on what I know and what my clinical experience is, I won't do it. I'll do something else. I can find another job. I have other friends, but if we can't be doctors and be teachers and help prevent illness and help heal illness and help, even, the other thing that we haven't even talked about is, when you work in a big system, if you talk about faith anywhere, you get fired. You cannot do that. And none of us are going to force faith on people. What I'm saying is, I have patients weekly now that say, doc, can you just say a quick prayer for me? And I do. And there's such a healing. That's just another tool that we have that we can use to help bring peace and comfort to people. right?
Absolutely, absolutely, yeah. And I'm so, thank God, it's so wonderful not to have to be encumbered by that restriction, like an institutional system where you're right, where they, admonish you if you talk about anything other than just uh, the health issue at hand. But yeah, no, my patients have really enjoyed me praying for them, and frankly them praying for me, and to be able to connect at that level is awesome. And yeah, I've never been so happy being a doctor in my life than I am now. As crazy as the era that we're in is, it's I think because the Lord is just releasing so much knowledge and freedom and all these, what I call a paradigm shift, just going out from the system that's restrictive to this system, or to this opportunity now that is just based on freedom. And there's no one telling you what you can't say and do. And like you said, we're always respectful of people's backgrounds and beliefs, but certainly if they're open to prayer and they want to connect that way, it's a joy to be able to pray with our patients. And yeah, no, I've never been happier. And honestly, just learning about how to get my patients off of big pharma and the medications that they've been on for their whole life, or for a large part of their life, and discovering intermittent fasting and ketogenic and how that can help reverse chronic disease. I mean, all of it is just, it really is a blessing from God. I mean, it's just, some people would call it like an awakening, a renaissance period, and it's certainly an explosion of good medicine, of truth, of actual science, if you will. And you and I both know, I mean, all wisdom, all knowledge comes from God. And so he's released this for the good of humanity. And even those patients that have been affected by things like vaccine injury and long COVID, I mean, thank God we're learning a lot about vitamin supplements, the use of ivermectin and low dose naltrexone. There's just so many other uses that actually are helping patients. And so to be able to help patients in any way, like you're saying, that we can help alleviate their suffering through that modality, and as well through prayer, you're right. That's what it's all about, is giving patients hope, letting them feel that hope, and just shining the light and love of Jesus, like like he told us to be the salt and light, of the world. And that's what we endeavor to do. I know you do, and I endeavor to do that every day. And so it's just a joy just to be a doctor right now, and be able to do this freely.
Yeah, and just to be able to sit back and say, "How's things at home? What do you do for
Right.
fun? How's life? What?"
Yeah.
Not just medicine. How do you feel? Does your knee
Right.
hurt? Why does it hurt?
Right.
You
Right.
know? Yeah, it's that thing that we lost that skill. I mean, if you look at the old docs, the old school docs, they would look. Yeah, as a matter of fact, I remember when I was just starting out, this old doc, and he was just talking to this guy BSing for a while. And I'm
Uh,
thinking, what's he doing? He's not even doing any medicine. What's he doing? And then we leave the room. And he said, "Do you notice this? He's intact. He's laughing. He goes, his depression's better. This is better. This is better than he's talking, but he can see his speech is right. He's looking at you. He's contact. And how much of that we miss in a
yes.
8-minute appointment. You can't
Oh,
assess any of this stuff. You're like, how's your blood? Let's fix.
yeah.
Let's check your blood test. Here's your blood labs. Here's your blood pressure meds, and here's your statin drug. Good luck.
Right.
We'll see you next time.
Yeah.
Like
Good luck.
it's
Exactly.
amazing.
Oh, it's awful. And so many of my patients have told me, because a lot of my patients that consult with me, I you know, I my practice is basically, I present myself as a consulting physician. It's you can be a primary doctor with telehealth, but sometimes it does have its challenges. But certainly as a consulting physician, a lot of my patients still have their primaries, and they tell me a lot of times, the doctor's back is to them. They're kind of typing on their EHR, and like you said, it's very pressured, very time constricted, and so it's just like, yeah, it's very dissatisfying. I'm sure, for obviously for the doctor, but more importantly for the patient. And you just, like you're saying, you don't get to that eye contact, that just being able to visit without feeling so pressured to hurry, for the next appointment. So yeah, no, this is a great way to practice, and it's certainly much more satisfying for me, and I know for my patients, it's a breath of fresh air too. So.
Yeah, and that's the thing is patients, they're putting up with it. One of my patients I met not too long ago, I sat down, talked to him for a little bit, BS with him for a little bit, and shook his hand, and he goes, "Okay, you're my doctor for life." And I go, "What do you mean? I haven't done anything. I haven't even talked." He
Right.
said, "You smiled at me. You treat me as a human being. You didn't turn your back to me. You weren't typing the whole time I was talking. You shook my hand, right? And you showed me respect, basically." He goes, "I haven't had a doctor like that in years, since I was a kid, maybe." And you go, "Wow." what's happened to medicine? Like we don't connect. We're all human beings, and we got to connect on that level also. Not just that
Yes.
it's just not the brain part of it, because we all know if someone's going through major stress, life struggles, spiritual struggles, alcohol, drugs, whatever it is, shame, guilt, like that is going to destroy the body faster than any disease process that we know.
Absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, totally agree with you. I mean, it's yeah, we really have to, a patient needs to see their doctor smiling and to see them engaged and just, be empathetic. And you're exactly right. I mean, all of that is missed on most of the modern day, quick consults at the office, doctors that are still in that system that's restrictive. And and like you're saying, I mean, the depression or patients that are struggling with addictions and so forth. I mean, they really need that bright light. They need the spiritual support as well. And so for us to be able to connect with them and to encourage them, I mean, is life changing for a lot of our patients. And so, yeah, and I know you do too. But I mean, I look at what we're doing as a ministry just as much as a profession. And I was actually conflicted before going to medical school. I was like, God, do you want me to be a missionary minister or should I be a doctor? And I felt like the Lord was just explaining to me, well, son, I want you to be a doctor, but also a minister of my gospel, of my, of my
Well,
love to people.
Luke
Yeah,
did all
Luke.
right.
Yeah,
Luke
exactly.
turned
He
out
did
all right.
okay.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. But that's
that's
it.
right.
But and sometimes it's like that's it, just realizing that. And I think that's one thing that really stood out to me, because every day, I honestly, I'd get home from work and my wife would go, "How was your day?" I would get home at 8:30 at night. "How was your day?" I know I have to get up at 4:30 tomorrow morning. "How's your?" I'm exhausted. I'm tired. I got yelled at by 3 people. Someone had to wait. They were upset they couldn't get in last week. And people didn't schedule their physicals, and if someone came 20 minutes late, threw my whole day off. And she goes, "Hey, I have a question for you. When you go to Guatemala, you're in the jungle and you work longer hours there, and you come back and you're just laughing and telling all these stories, and you're so filled up, and you're working more hours there, right?" And I say, "Yeah, but it's different. Like the people are appreciative, first of all. Second of all, I'm not staring at the computer and trying to type my notes and staying 3 hours or 4 hours after seeing the patient. I love the time with the patient, but it's all the other junk we have to deal with. That's the frustrating, the system part of it is like, I love the patients. That's never changed. It's the dealing with the paperwork, and I got to check this box. You don't check this box, you can't bill for this, and you got to put this code. I'm like, this is crazy. We're making codes. We're not helping people anymore."
Exactly. Yeah. No, I exactly. I mean, you described it to a T, our experience, and I was shocked because I had heard about physician burnout, but I didn't think it was going to happen to me so quickly. But that first year out of residency, I mean, I would, like you're describing, all the administrative burdens and all the coding. I mean, I told my wife, I was like, this is depressing me. And at that time in my life too, Brian, coming out of residency, I was not carb restricting. As a matter of fact, I was eating carbs for comfort food. It was part of my coping strategy. So I had become quite obese. Um, I'm only 5'7", but I got up to almost 230 pounds, and I was extremely obese, unhealthy, and depressed on top of that. And so I said, I knew my life was not where I wanted it to be, and I knew even spiritually it was affecting me. So I personally, I had to get out because I didn't know how to manage all of what we just talked about and take care of myself. And I knew, kind of like the oxygen mask analogy on the airplane, if I didn't put that oxygen mask on, I wasn't going to be able to help anybody else. So for me, it just looked like departing from that system. And at that time, I just knew about locum tenens as an alternative, and I kind of focused more on urgent care, and that did help. I mean, I had more time, I guess, to spend time off with my wife and to take walks at the park. And I did get a lot of those emotional things I was dealing with in my lifestyle, crutching mechanisms, that did get better, and I was able to rein that in. But yeah, no, the doctors that are still in the system, I mean, it's really tough. And like you said, it's never been about not loving our patients, because that's why we went into this. But it's just the constraints of the mainstream system is just, it takes the joy of practicing out of medicine,
And also,
essentially.
it's a badge of honor if you say, "I only slept 3 hours last night." "Oh, I only slept 1.5 hours," and we're like proud of that. As
Yeah.
doctors, you don't realize, man, do we have no clue? And you look at the doctor's lounge, the food we have, you look at
Oh,
the alcohol abuse, drug abuse. I mean, it's an incredible. Like when you
yeah.
sit back, you go, "Wow, that's what is happening to us," because the amount of stress that doctors are under is, I don't. It is so immense when you think about lawsuits and malpractice and all
Right.
the things that can happen, medical boards, whoever's coming after you in the place, you got to study for the boards, you got this, there's so much responsibility we have, and we're the healers and we're suffering.
Yes, absolutely. It's just, yeah, exactly. I mean, I realize this is not compatible with me being a healthy individual, much less a healthy doctor. And, I think because I was so stressed out and I was eating as like a form of coping, I realized what I was doing, but I didn't know how to break that cycle. And frankly, I felt hypocritical, because I'm telling my patients to lose weight and manage their chronic disease through lifestyle change. And I knew that it was like, I really didn't want to have that conversation because I was like, oh boy, they're going to look at me and go, okay, doc, when you start doing it, I'll do it. So those were like major wake up calls for me that I was not going to be able to sustain that lifestyle. And, and I'm glad I didn't try because it wasn't working for me. And, and as our system is broken. And I do feel for the patients that are stuck in that system still and they don't know where else to turn. And so prayerfully, God will, help us all shift to a healthier model, kind of like what you and I were talking about, being able to spend more time with their patients and actually offering them different, you know, uh, lifestyle interventions and dietary changes, just a whole different paradigm that I think ultimately, is going to help them. And obviously we're more satisfied in our jobs, regardless about the hours, because we feel like we're doing something that is meaningful, healthy, and that we can feel, joyful about. So,
Well, plus you're taking the burden off the healthcare system, because
yeah,
if we prevent the diabetes complication, if we prevent the diabetes, we prevent all the down cycle, down things that
right,
we know are going to happen: amputations, dialysis,
right,
blindness, heart attacks, strokes, all these things. We can definitely intervene. So instead of having
right.
the ERs full of people with heart attacks, let's try to prevent that. Let's try to make people a little bit high. And it sounds so crazy to us Western guys saying, "Hey, just breathe." Just
Yeah,
pray, just pray, just breathe, go to church, find a community. Like the lack of community that we saw too was devastating. I mean, for me, I cried several times because I had seniors that were locked in a room. They haven't seen anyone for 6 months
oh,
because of fear they're going to die. And you go, that's what's going to kill them more than anything. They would drop that. I just talked to this lady, as a matter of fact, and she uh, didn't see a face. Like, I was the first, we did Zoom meetings, right? And she would see me and she'd be so happy. And I go, why are you so happy to see me? I haven't seen a face. Like, they drop my food, they knock on the door, and they say, wait 30 seconds, then you can go get it when there's no one in the hallway. And you think, holy cow. And you have no bingo, no social engagement. You're sitting in your room. A lot of people, seniors, don't know how to use Zoom. If they're
right.
if they're depressed and anxious and they're stuck in a room by themselves watching the news telling them
Oh,
they're gonna die, like, if you get it, you're gonna die. And it's like, wow,
so,
that's scary. And when you look at the numbers, and
oh,
you and I on the front lines, we knew what the numbers were, we knew what we were seeing. And it's so hard because we can't compete with CNN. All we could do is try to
right.
educate our patient. We can't the CNN and Fox, whoever it is. I'm not just blaming, I'm blaming
Sure.
this whole
Oh, yeah.
message of gloom and doom. And when we talk about faith, people freaked out on us, and hope.
Yeah. Exactly, exactly. And faith has to be. I mean, for us, Brian, it's the center. I mean, we realize that everything we're doing, every breath we take, is by the grace of God. And I've always endeavored to never hold back, especially as we feel the prompting of the Lord if we need to share our faith. I mean, yeah, I even when I was in the system working for institutions, I mean, I still, as I felt prompted to share with people, prayer, and certainly a lot of people would bring it up. So obviously it just was a great segue. I could agree with them, but yeah, I don't know what I would do. I mean, I wouldn't be able to function without God. I wouldn't be able to function without His guidance and prayer. And I mean, there's times I remember I was in an urgent care one time, and this guy was having a PE, and I think it was his mother brought him in. He wasn't that old, but he was very obese, and he was in a wheelchair, and he was already cyanotic and blue. And I just felt like the Lord said, you need to pray for him. I mean, yes, we're going to call 911, but right now, I mean, he needs prayer because he's about to die. And I remember just, kind of quietly putting my hand on his shoulder and just praying for him. And I called out his name, and his eyes just opened. And, I realized, I was like, thank you, Jesus. I mean, because I realized this man was dying in front of me, and there was not anything I could do, in a standard clinic urgent care. But it's in those moments where you realize you have to have God, because there's going to be situations that you cannot in your own power and strength, change the outcome happening right in front of you. But as a Christian, you can just, you don't have to, it doesn't even have to be yelled out or anything, but you can just quietly put your hand on that shoulder and say, Lord, I ask you to touch this man and heal him. And I've been in several of those situations. One lady with the stroke with a similar situation, and it's just, I would say to anybody listening, Christian doctor, or nurse practitioner, PA, or anybody for that matter, not even necessarily in the healthcare industry, but if you're in a situation, just, remember that God is right there with you, whatever you're going through, whatever that person's going through, and don't hesitate just to say a prayer over them, and just watch God, intervene and do what only God can do. And so anyway, that's just some cool memories there.
Yeah, and sometimes just being there and putting your hand on that person, like you said. I was just in Guatemala, and we were the first arrival, first on scene with a major car accident. Yes. And it's like, hey, I don't have any of my equipment, I have anything, but I can put my hand on you and say, hey, I'm here with you. Let's talk. How are you? We're gonna get you out of here, out of the mangled car. And just being there and being able to be calm and be a presence of where they know they're not alone and scared. Just that is what we're called as doctors, and as human beings, not just doctors, and so
that's right.
Yeah, it's amazing how we get these divine appointments. As a matter of fact, right, I had to go do. I'm doing this interstate thing where I can, practice in other states, and I had to go get my fingerprints, and I'm there, and this guy sitting there. He's from Africa, actually. Anyways, we just started having a little conversation, and the guy was so he was so amazed. He's like, you look at me in the eye, you smile to me, and then he found out I was a doctor, and he was blown away. He's like, oh my gosh, you're a doctor, and you're talking to me, and it was really a great interaction. But he said, hey, can we pray together at the end? And it was just like I'm praying for your family, you pray for my family, here we go. And it was just like random. I'm like, this is random. He didn't know I was a Christian, but he saw something. But it's amazing. And I saw that in him too. And you go, wow, it's amazing how we connect with people like that. Yeah. And I'm like, what a nice guy and what a nice experience. But sometimes we putting ourselves out there to have that experience,
Yes, absolutely.
And that's something I think sometimes we have our blinders on, and sometimes when we're out in the medical mission field, we're out there and we sense more. I think we're more in tune to what's happening, rather than here we're just so busy and distracted. We miss those opportunities a lot.
Right. Absolutely. But yeah, no, that's so cool how the Lord opened up that opportunity for you guys. And yeah, that's, I really, and I know he does this for you and for me and for all of us that are Christians, if we really, start our day, with that intentionality, just knowing that, Lord, bring whoever needs to hear your word today, or an encouragement, or a patient that I can help. And God, he's awesome how he just orchestrates, like you're saying, these divine appointments. And, a patient will just randomly call me and, they'll tell me they just randomly picked me out of a directory, but they ended up, they were a Christian, and they didn't realize that I was. And so we're connecting at a level that only God could have known and put us together. So I've seen that too in my practice, and I love how the Lord does that. And and I get excited actually when he puts us together. I mean, he like you said, he used Twitter to put us together. So he's got a good sense of humor, and he definitely orchestrates our steps.
Yeah, and how we cross paths, and who knows what happens down the road, and all these things. It's kind of super. It's really amazing. I've seen these things, and you go, wow, what's the odds of that happening? This person meeting this person, that person do it, and it's crazy. And it builds your faith when you see it. And it's hard when people say, well, this is hocus pocus. Well, explain this to me. Explain this, because we're scientists too. We didn't check our science brain at the door when we walked in. But I think when you though, and I think the other reason I think we may have a different sense of most people is that most people aren't even looking up until they're on their back. Most people just don't think about till times get hard, till we get locked down, till you start realizing like what matters. Like, I just lost my job, I lost my business, whatever it is. Where do I turn when this happens?
Exactly. Yeah. And and I know our faith, carried us through, and my heart goes out to so many, because that was an extraordinarily hard time with the lockdowns and people losing their small businesses. And and I tell you, this is such a time for Christians to arise and to really encourage our our neighbors and our fellow countrymen and so forth. I mean, just not only in the medical way, but just the hardships that they've endured, that we've all been through. And obviously, I mean, you have to have hope, and that hope comes from Christ. And to be able to share that with others, and just to encourage others that are going through a rough time. I mean, that's such a joy to be able to do that. And but it's definitely been a crazy time. And as we know, biblically speaking, right, the Bible tells us of sort of the end times in which we're living and all the darkness that will be upon the earth. But I thank God for that scripture that says the light shines in the darkness and the darkness has not overcome it. So thank God for his light that pierces that and we know that God has his hand on us, as long as
Yeah.
he
Yeah. The
has us
light,
here.
you can't see the light during the day, right? You see it at night when it's dark. And you also bring out the light and the cockroaches run away from the light, right? So
Exactly.
you start realizing all things, all truth, the lies get exposed at some point. So I think a lot of people, it's a hard thing. And it's a hard thing because a lot of people saw certain interventions as their only way out. And anyone who
Right.
stood in that way was a bad person that was evil, that wanted them to be locked down the rest of their lives. Like, we're trying to get you to the light. So we're trying to
Right.
help you and, discuss risk and benefits and all that. And the other big tragedy, I think one of the biggest tragedies is those people that you're helping, the people who are injured, and then they were hurting the cause because they were injured, and they didn't choose it, and they became the lepers of our day. Of people were criticizing them, saying they're liars, and they're
Right.
suffering, and someone's
Yeah.
suffering, and then you don't want to help them. And in my experience, a lot of doctors, because people made a personal preference decision based on their analysis of the data, said, here's what I don't want to do certain treatments, and if they didn't, doctors fired them. Boom, 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 boom. So I had people call me crying like, okay, I haven't had this intervention, will you take me? I'm like, come on in, my doors are open to you, right? And it's sad because it's as doctors, I don't say, well, you smoked, okay, I'm not taking care of you.
Right.
You did this, I'm not taking care of you. Wait, that's totally against medical ethics, and we all know that.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's shocking. I mean, the acceptance of that type of discrimination and judgment calls.
Not only that, it was encouraged. Like,
Yeah.
you turn on late night TV, the comedians are saying, hey, sorry, we're not
Oh,
going
yeah.
to help you. You suffer, you go out in the street and die. And that's not funny. That's a
No,
person,
it's
right? We all
yeah.
know that.
That's exactly. Yeah. No, I think Brian, that really was. Yeah. I mean, the horrible darkness and evil behind that. Agenda. And you're right. Comedians making light of it and making fun of people. It was just, it's horrific, but it exposes just the evil in man's heart, to even contemplate that type of a rationale. But thank God that not everybody agrees with that, and that there are a lot of Christians and other believers that just rejected that and said, no way, we're not we're not going to discriminate against anybody, regardless of whatever intervention you have or have not taken. And so yeah, I know it's been crazy, and just like you said, the challenges of getting that information out there, right, and having things shut down and censored and that type of thing has been a challenge to overcome. But thank God, slowly but surely, I think we're getting the word out, and more patients seem to be seeing the light in that regard, and justifiably upset about it. And prayerfully, the Lord will help us to bring accountability in due time. But in the meantime, we're just trucking forward and doing the best we can, and providing good information for our patients and families. And but yeah, it's been crazy what we've endured, no doubt.
Yeah, and we realize, I think the big thing we had to realize for all of us was our duty and obligation is to the patient in front of us. It's not
Right.
to all the rest of society. It's not to your cousin. It's to that patient in
Right.
front of you. It's not to the ivory towers who's going to say you're wrong because I've never treated a patient, but I know better than you do, right? I've never treated this
Right.
condition, but I know all the answers, and don't question me. And so that's the thing that's so hard, because we have to have grace. We have to have understanding and say, okay, some people are misguided. Some people are, there's the
Right.
Judases of the world, and they'll always be with us, and
That's
that's the
right.
problem. And sometimes they take power, and it makes it challenging. It makes it challenging to
Yeah.
do the right thing, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So I'm so
Absolutely.
thankful for you and your positive influence, and you speaking up for your faith. And I think it's important that people see that, yes, doctors, we die just like everyone else. We go through the hardships of life. So, we have to lean on something. And, going through med school is a challenge, and residency, and
Right.
seeing people die and seeing people getting sick, and seeing things that we can't fix. I don't know what I would do without faith, to be honest with you.
Oh yeah, I couldn't even make it. I mean, I tell the Lord all the time, God, without you, I can't do anything, and I never even want to contemplate, being without you. So yeah, no, He's the strength and source of our life, and he equips us and gives us the grace we need, to do what we're doing. And for everybody, I mean, for every believer, I mean, he is, he is our source. And so, yeah, no, thank you, Brian, too, for what you're doing and sharing your faith and encouragement. And you've greatly encouraged me. I mean, like I said, just finding fellow doctors, fellow, doctors that are also Christians. I mean, that share that similar perspective. I mean, it's so encouraging. And, like you said, we never push our faith on anybody, but we also don't hide from it. I mean, we as Jesus said, you don't put a lamp under a bushel or under a bowl, but you let it shine, and you just you let that, and it speaks for itself. I mean, you just doing the things that God asked us to do. When we go and we visit the poor, or the hungry, or the mission trips to Guatemala, I mean, that is demonstrating the light and love of Jesus, and it just shines. And we need more
Yeah.
people like that.
Well, and that's the thing. I think that's the thing we learn too is, when you're like, when we're in Guatemalan clinic, I don't say, okay, I'm going to help you. Well, what's your religion? What's your political party?
Right,
What's your,
right,
who'd you vote for last time? Oh,
right,
yeah, I'm not helping you. It's just crazy how we get so
right.
divided. And, most of us
Yes,
just want to do our job and say, okay, if I prescribe a certain medication that I think helps my patient, it's not political. It's helping the
right.
patient that's in front of me. And it's become that. And we're
Yes,
drawn into it and you go, okay, what do you do? How do you get through all this stuff? But I think like what you're saying, respecting of all faith, I love it. I love when I have patients of different faith and they come in and I go,
yes,
why do you believe what you believe? And they'll ask me why I believe and we have a discussion. I go, that's kind of cool. I like that part of it. Maybe I'll take that with me and think that with someone. And I know how to deal with my next person who's of your faith or whatever it is, and respecting that. But yeah, I think that's what can draw us all together. And I think, those of us who, we try to live the right, love your neighbor, the golden rule,
right.
karma, whatever you want to call it, if you're into yoga or whatever, it's really saying, where do you find your peace? What makes you
Yeah,
a better human being to other people? And if that's not working, you got to look for something else.
right, right. Exactly, exactly. Yeah, and yeah, it's a good point. The golden rule. I love that because it's so universal. Doing to others as you would have them doing to you, and it really does. It sums up everything that we endeavor to do, and just share the love of God with people. And so, yeah,
Yeah.
no, it's a blessing, brother, to connect with you, and yeah, and just share our experiences and what we've gone through, and what we continue to see, and so forth.
Yeah. And Doc, I got to ask you, since this is life's best medicine, what's life's best medicine for you? Where do you go when things are hard? Where do you go when, what keeps you going and going through those long hours of residency and medicine? What's your life's best medicine?
Yes, yes, great question. Well, I think my personal relationship with Jesus Christ, the communion that I have, through His Holy Spirit, definitely. I mean, that is my life source, and and I would say within the context of Him just sustaining me and refreshing me and encouraging me, on those days like you're saying, where I might be sleep deprived, or when I was depressed about maybe my health in the past and so forth, it was always God that came through and ultimately encouraged me to get back up, dust myself off, and just keep on following Him and walking with Him. And I'll say another thing, in addition, obviously, to my faith, in the Lord's ministry to me, just getting outdoors, and with my wife, and just enjoying His creation. I mean, whether it's a hike in the park, or a lot of beautiful places out there in California, just along the coast, and just experiencing, the glory of God. I mean, His creation, and just quieting yourself, and just being, like with my wife, someone that I love and can cherish the moment, and just there's, I mean, that refreshes my soul like nothing else. And if I don't do those kinds of things often, I'll find myself getting more maybe stressed out, or just kind of off balance. And then it's like it just kind of resets me when I can get out and just be with the Lord, clear my mind, be with my wife, and a stroll along the beach or at a beautiful park or whatnot. I mean, that's it. I don't know. Yeah, that's probably my best advice for life's best medicine for me.
Awesome. Awesome. Yeah, that's awesome. And that's, that's it. That's some of the best messages, taking a day and going for a walk, looking at the
Yeah,
ocean, going to the mountains, seeing the waterfalls, whatever, and be able to take a breath, because so many of us, we're thinking we're there and we're not present because we're thinking, oh, when I get back, I got to do my charts. I got to get this ready. Oh, next week I have this meeting, and and so many times it's hard to just calm that spirit and calm that,
right.
and me too, I notice it
Yeah,
when I'm in Guatemala. I can't really do a heck of a lot of that stuff. So I
right.
relax totally, and just do medicine and ministry stuff. But yeah,
Right.
that's just good medicine. I think that's something that a lot of doctors are lacking, that because they just don't have
Yeah,
time for it, and they're busy and they're stressed and they're trying to move up the chain, and they're trying to,
right.
survive and pay off their med school loans. And so people don't really. I do have and we have a lot of compassion for that. And sometimes you're stuck in the system, and you don't see your way out, and you go, okay, I'm just a hopeless cog in this wheel that's just spinning around, and I'm Sisyphus pushing that rock up the hill all day, and you're not going anywhere. That's how I felt. That's as what I have on my wall here, because it reminded me of what it felt like, that this endless task of trying to help people that are just broken and sick, if we don't change what we're doing, we're never going to change the outcome. So having doctors like you, it really does make a difference, because we can all work together. There's no competition, that there's enough sick
Right.
people who are hurting. And
Exactly.
I know in San Diego, I have patients calling me and they're like, look, I called my doctor 8 times. No one calls me back. No one. And it's just this lack of caring. Like, they're sick,
Right.
call them back and help them. And so having doctors like you who can take up that slack is a huge thing, say, hey, call me. I'm here. Like, I'm
Yeah,
here. And
that's
so
right.
if people want to contact you, how do they track you down and say, hey, I'm in need? And what kind of
Absolutely.
patients are you looking for?
Yes, yes. So thank you so much for that question. So my current practice, I have a Push Health practice, which Push Health is a platform. I mean, I don't certainly own the platform, but it's a telemedicine platform, and it allows doctors to have their own private practice on that platform and connect with their patients through telephone, video, and through secure messaging. So it's been a great platform. I've really enjoyed using it. So I can share my link, with you so that we could make that available. But basically, a patient would just go to the web page or the link for my particular Push Health practice, and then they could connect with me. I've got my email there, so if they need to ask me any questions, before signing up with me. But certainly, to sign up with me, there's no obligation. I mean, even if you decide I may not be able to help your needs, that's certainly not an issue, or something that a patient needs to worry about. And and then that way we can connect. As far as the patients that I'm sort of endeavoring to help, I mean, much like what you do, Brian. I mean, I'm certainly always grateful to help patients that might have you know metabolic syndromes they're struggling with, or obesity or diabetes, and just offering through counseling, really, and in lifestyle modification, ways that we could help patients that are in that situation that might just want a second opinion than what they're hearing from their primary doctor. And I'm also, as you know, very passionate about the vaccine injured. So patients that are in California and Texas, where I'm licensed, I mean, if you've suffered a vaccine injury, or you're dealing with long COVID, or just something you're not sure about, because frankly, it doesn't always get acknowledged, and usually doesn't in the mainstream system. And so patients get very discouraged because they have very real symptoms, and it's going, um, you know, they're not receiving the help they need, or even the acknowledgement. So, if there's a patient like that that's looking for a doctor, like I said, I would be happy to connect with you if you're in the state of California or Texas, where we can connect through telemedicine. But yeah, no, thank you for asking that, and hopefully I can continue doing what I'm doing, and helping patients feel better.
Yeah, Doc, blessings. And it's so good to have you on. And we'll make sure you could send me your link and information, and I'll
Yes.
put that in the show notes. We'll make sure we have that in there, and we'll get that on to the people, because a lot of times people don't know. They're like, oh my goodness, there's a doctor who can take care of me who's right here. I could just pick up the phone call. Yeah, I could do a phone call. I could do a Zoom meeting, and we could do it just like what we're doing here. So it's
Right.
amazing how technology can be a blessing or a curse. And I think in this case, it's a blessing that we can help people online and help get them on track and give them that opinion that they need, or second opinion, or help them say, oh, I've seen this 5 times already this week. Okay, here's what we do for that, right? And so it's
Exactly.
cool, because so many people aren't even offered an option of helping them with what they're going through, and it's tragic. And I
It,
think, and plus the doctors are so busy, you can't. As a matter of fact, that as a commercial for what we're doing, I just saw a guy, the surgeon sent him to me. uh he has full insurance, HMO, and he needed pre-op clearance, and they couldn't see him for 3 months in his primary office. They couldn't see him until August, and this is in May. And
Wow.
the guy goes, look, I need to get surgery. I'm kind of stuck. So I go, you know what? Let's just get your labs. Let's get you squared away. Cleared him for surgery. He got his surgery. He will be completely healed from his surgery by the time he sees his primary.
Wow. Oh my goodness. Yeah, that's case in point of the broken system. Oh my goodness.
Cash pay labs, whatever. So
wow.
So everyone
Yeah.
listening, this is good stuff. Doc, thanks for joining me. And be kind to yourself, be kind to others. And sometimes, hey, if you're a person of faith, don't be afraid to share it. Don't hide under the rocks. It's okay. It's who you are. So you'll be judged, and that's okay. That you're not the first one who was a person of faith that has been judged or mocked or ridiculed. And it's part of the game. But at night when you lay your head down, you'll know. And so if you're thirsting in your heart and something's not right and you want to get right, find a local church, find someone, reach out to someone, build a community around you, because we all need community, especially us guys. So hopefully this is a commercial for that, to say, I'm not content with life. I'm not getting a call back. I'm not treated with respect from my doctor. Well, call this doc. You can call me. There's people out there. Us people in medicine are good people generally. Sometimes we get jaded by the system. We get overworked and stressed and tense, and we have our own personal stuff going on. But I think what I'm saying is, don't, just like in a relationship, don't settle for someone who's treating you terribly and doesn't respect you as a person and you're just another number. Reach out. There's direct primary care doctors all over. Doesn't have to be us. It's just whoever you find out there. But I say you give Dr. Marcus a call, and get in good hands, get in someone who cares and they're fighting for you. That's really critically important. So again, be kind to yourself, be kind to others. And Doc, thanks for joining me. Blessings.
Amen. Thank you so much, Brian, for having me. God bless you, my brother. And thank you for all that you do. I really appreciate this.
Thank you for listening to this episode. We greatly appreciate your support. We would greatly appreciate a positive thumbs up on all of the platforms like iTunes and Spotify or wherever you're listening. And we just thank you for our Patreon supporters. We greatly appreciate your help in getting this message out. We think there's a lot of important information, and hopefully this helps you. Have a great day, and thank you for listening, and thank you for your support.